Today, what we've looked at is what a contract is, and we've said we need agreement, intent, and consideration. We've delved a little into agreement to work out what an offer is, the starting point. Has someone offered to enter a contract? Now what we're going to do is look into what happens with that offer. How do we actually get to agreement? Or what else happens if we don't get to agreement? What technically, legally do we say is happening with that offer? So let's go. So as our diagram here says, once we have an offer, that offer can be accepted, rejected, revoked, it can lapse. The offeror could die, or there could be a failure of condition. Now, these are two important areas, particularly this condition. So you could put a condition on an offer and that fails, and so the offer stops. But we're not going to do that in our subject, and we're not going to cover death. Hopefully that's pretty obvious, and it's highly technical if the other person doesn't know they died. So we're not going to deal with those two areas. We're going to deal with a standard kind of situation where we've got an offer on the table, and that offer can be accepted, it can be rejected, it can be revoked, or it can lapse. So let's get into this. We're going to hold acceptance back a bit and treat that separately, because once we have offer plus acceptance, we know we have a contract, right? So that's why acceptance is important and has a few more rules. Whereas if an offer is rejected or revoked or lapsed, we have no contract. Okay, so that's why it's important to know these. If these happen, we don't have a contract. If acceptance happens, we do. So hide and wrench is a great case to help us understand when we have a meeting of minds or not. So wrench tells Hyde, look, I'll sell you some land for $1,200. Hyde says no. Okay. Then wrench says, well, I'll sell you the land for $1,000. And Hyde says, look, I'll buy it for $950. Can you see how they're negotiating here around the price? Okay. Wrench says no. Then Hyde says, okay, well, I'll accept this offer here of $1,000. And wrench went back and said, actually, no, I don't want to. Okay, so I don't want to sell it to you for $1,000 now. And Hyde says, well, look, we had a contract, right? I accepted your offer of $1,000. Okay, so what we can clearly see here is an offer, then a rejection, right, saying no, then another offer. Then what's this, right? Because, and then that's a rejection. And then this, Hyde says, this is an acceptance, right? And Hyde is trying to link this acceptance to this offer to say we've got a contract. Now remember, wrench has said no to this. It's important to remember that. Otherwise, there probably would be a contract because they've agreed. So there isn't a meeting of minds down here. So the question becomes, what's happened here, right? And what the law says, what Hyde and wrench says, is that this is what's called a counter offer. So this is in fact an offer to buy the land. Now because it's an offer to buy the land, a counter offer is a rejection of the original offer. And that means the offer is off the table. So that means this offer is no longer live. That means that's the counter offer. It also means this is a counter offer. Okay? Because this is a counter offer, everything else is off the table. So this is actually an offer to buy, which is rejected. So here there's no contract. Okay? A counteroffer is a rejection of the original offer, Hyde and wrench. So an offer can be accepted, then we have agreement, the first element we need for a contract. The offeree can actually reject the offer. And if it's rejected, the offer terminates. It's not live anymore. So a counteroffer is considered a rejection. If you make a counteroffer, you can't later change your mind and accept the original offer. Okay, what you're doing is starting a new offer to buy. Now, in a lot of cases, the person might accept that new offer to buy, but it's up to them now, not up to you. You can make counter offers, of course. So what's revocation? Look, revocation is where you've made an offer, but you want to take it back. Okay, so provided the offer is live, okay, so provided the offer hasn't been accepted or rejected, you can revoke the offer. But if it's been accepted, you can't. So you can't revoke an offer after acceptance. Effective revocation must be brought to the notice of the offeree before acceptance. Okay, so it must, the person who has received your offer, who the offer is directed at, must know about it before they accept it. Now this final one, what's it dealing with here, this point here? This is where you say, look, I offer to sell you my computer. You have up until Monday to get back to me. Okay, so you've got an offer that will terminate at the end of a period, and it's very clear when the end of that period is. Now, you can actually revoke that offer even if you promise to keep it open. Why? Because it's really just a promise by you, so there's nothing kind of binding in it. The one time when you're not allowed to revoke an offer that's open for a particular period is if someone has paid for it. Okay, so if that person said to me, I'll give you $2 to keep that offer period open until Monday to sell your computer to me. If they've given me $2 to do that, what they actually have is an option. Look, one sneaky way to think about this is it's actually more like a separate little contract, right? That we've agreed that this offer will be live for a certain period and you've given consideration for it. So you intended it to be something that you would stick to, okay? So an option is where someone pays something, some consideration, which we'll get to later, in order to keep the offer period open. Other than that, other than an option, you actually can revoke an offer that has been open for a period of time. Okay, so we know an offer can be accepted, which leads to a contract. It can be rejected, which kills it. It can be revoked or pulled back, which kills it. And it can also lapse, and that ends the offer. So you can lapse, as in this example, for a specified time. So that example that I just had about selling my computer open to Monday, that will lapse at the end of that period. But if you don't specify a time, then it will depend on the circumstances of the case. So for instance, if you have perishable goods, it will lapse after a reasonable period, a short time. But in the case of, say, land or something that doesn't go off, that will actually be a longer time. And the courts look at that on a fact-by-fact situation, okay? But an offer doesn't stay live forever. It will lapse after a reasonable time. What a reasonable time is depends upon the kinds of goods we're talking about and the circumstances in the case. Whew, that's a lot. We've had an offer made. We worked out we can reject the offer can be revoked, the offer can lapse. The next bit that we've got to do is acceptance. What happens when we actually do get agreement? What are the rules to say we actually have got acceptance? That's next.